What is up, everybody? Welcome into Shout, a Buffalo Bills football podcast. It is officially football season in Western New York. Unfortunately, the Buffalo Sabres eliminated in Game 7 yesterday against the Montreal Canadiens. I think most of today, the area, the city, and then Buffalo sports fans across the country and the world have been kind of going through it. But it was a nice little pick-me-up down in Orchard Park today, getting a chance to see the Bills together for the first time as a full team under Joe Brady. We got some Josh Allen, D.J. Moore, got some Maxwell Hairston, some Keon Coleman, ton of observations to get to on today's show. Ryan Talbot, how are you, buddy?
It'd be a lot better if Tage Thompson had passed that to Zach Benson, Matt. But other than that, I'm doing great.
Yeah, it's funny. I have like a multitude of feelings on everything. Like I share in the frustration, and I think I even ripped off a tweet last night with a nice little expletive in there as when the whistle was blown a little bit early on what should have been the Malenstein goal. But I think sometimes it's hard in the moment. We talked about this a lot early in the Josh Allen era of the Bills when they were going to the playoffs for the first couple of times, and it almost felt like you felt happy just to be there if you were a Bills fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like after so many years of not going to the tournament, to just get there and just go through that kind of ride was something that I think Bills fans were really enjoying. And it's like, I felt like that's kind of where Sabres fans were going into the playoffs. But as soon as they beat Boston, it's almost like things flipped a little bit. And it was like, oh, wait a second, now that you're here, go win the whole thing. And I think it's easy to forget about, all right, this team was the worst team in hockey in December and had this unbelievable run that I think people are going to remember this year for a long time.
No, it's very true. I mean, like you said, I went into the playoffs saying, all right, just win one series, beat Boston, knock them out, and I'll be happy. And then you get to Game 7, though, of a series against Montreal, and you're the better team for Games 6 and 7. You'd think that you can, pull that out, but it just didn't happen. Like you said, though, turning the page, and luckily there's some Buffalo Bills football to talk about.
The Bills rolled the balls out in Orchard Park today at the Kaleida Health Training Facility, no longer the Ed Pro Sports Training Center. And at the first practice, we got a chance to watch individual drills, 11 on 11, 7 on 7, a ton of observations. We're even going to get into a couple that I haven't even sent out to the insiders yet because I've been just going 100 miles an hour. It's funny, like we get to this day, and there's like a lot of housekeeping to do. Like we haven't talked to Keon Coleman since the Terry Pegula press conference. So that obviously was a big storyline this afternoon. Terrell Bernard, so much uncertainty around him this offseason with the scheme change and just getting the extension, like getting a chance to talk to him today. Caught up with Landon Jackson, Dwayne Carter. There'll be a lot that comes out on the website over the next couple of days, updates on this team. But we're going to get into the practice today. And I want to start with Keon specifically because it's been such a tumultuous offseason for him. Now, you wouldn't be able to tell based on his 5.5-minute press scrum today after practice. I thought the way that he handled every question about Terry Pegula, about his role, about what the expectations are this year, accountability for last year, I thought he knocked it out of the park. He, quote unquote, said his 2025 season was ass. And he basically mentioned getting bench multiple times, like the ups and downs. He felt like he ended on a strong note. We talked about that Denver game, but he picked up exactly where he left off a year ago, Ryan, like dominating in the practice environment. And I think I'm going to double down on something I've said on multiple shows. I think on our show, on with Carl Jones over at WIVB on his podcast, I think there's an opportunity here for Keon Coleman to grow into what they were hoping for him to become. He's no longer going to be asked to be the number one wide receiver. That is DJ Moore. It was evident out there today. We'll get to that in a minute. But Keon Coleman made a play. It was one-on-one in coverage against Maxwell Hairston. He ended up going up on a ladder to 10 feet at the rim and making a catch that really, you think about why they drafted Keon Coleman in the first place, makes the grab, comes down with it. Caleb Elam's Orr was in the mix there. But no matter who was there, or if somebody actually wanted to go up at the rim with him, it felt like he was going to win that.
I think we might have lost Matt. I'm just frozen on my end. So, yeah, Keon Coleman, Matt mentioned it. I like the way he took on this interview today. He said it was a make or break season for him, Matt, and the perspective is there. And he's right. Look at all the wide receivers across this league that are former, I know he wasn't a first round pick, but former first round picks that just don't pan out. And then they're journeymen of sorts. They're going from team to team to team. Elijah Moore is a good example of a player that was picked around the same year that Keon Coleman was in a draft class. But there's also been some first round busts. In this league now, the patience isn't there much for late first, early second round players. You've got to develop. You've got to be out there and perform. And like you said, I think now that DJ Moore is in the equation, the expectations are different. Everyone eats is still a philosophy, but when you have a true number one, it helps in terms of the expectations. It helps in terms of the matchups that Keon Coleman is going to see in year 3. And he's obviously been putting in the work. All the players do in the offseason, but the work he's been doing with Stevie Johnson and his normal training. And I think that this could end up being a nice year for him where he does carve out a very specific role on this team.
I think I'm back here, man. CB over on YouTube, you hit the nail on the head. I gotta take a long look at this internet situation. It's been a bad week. I don't know what is going on, but it's been a tough situation. But listen, everything to this point has been documented with Keon, right? Like, we know what is on the line this season, and I think the fact that he's coming out and saying that quiet part out loud, because a lot of young players, when they get stuff like this thrown at them, it's perceived as negativity. He's almost embracing it. Like, I know I got to put up or shut up. Like, a lot of guys come into the league, they don't produce, and before long, you're out from the team that you're on, and the opportunities start becoming limited. I mean, Chase Claypool is, I don't know if he's one of the guys you just mentioned, is a perfect example of a guy that is even in a different stratosphere than Keon because of the production he had in year 1. Like, he came in and actually was a player that erupted, had a standout season. Then everything kind of went downhill from there. Some of the stuff that off the field stuff hampered him before, the opportunities started to kind of wane over the course of time. And I think he's going to be in camp with Green Bay, but we saw how it didn't work out here in Buffalo after another injury. Time is no man's friend as you're trying to make NFL rosters or impact in NFL locker rooms.
And like you said, the perspective is there for Keon Coleman. There's added competition to this room, not just with DJ Moore, obviously taking over as wide receiver 1. They drafted Skylar Bell in round 4. They've brought in some familiar faces. They have a lot of guys battling for roster spots. Keon's in a good spot roster-wise, but he's got to come out and perform if he wants to be on that field week in, week out. He talked about how it was unacceptable being benched multiple times last season. He's saying all the right things. Obviously, now he has to follow that up throughout the summer at training camp. But then when it really starts to matter throughout the season in September all the way through January or February.
All right, so here's I think the number one attraction of this practice was Josh Allen, DJ Moore, for the first time together on a football field that we're able to actually put our eyes on. And, I remember when the Bills traded for Stephon Diggs and he got into the building. I mean, they had John Brown, they had Cole Beasley, Robert Foster at the time. When Diggs started practicing, it felt different, right? And I don't want to overhype this, but there's a different level that you see from guys of the Stephon Diggs caliber, DJ Moore caliber. I mean, even Keon said it. This is a guy that's had 3 different seasons with 1,000 or more yards. I think it's 4 different seasons. Keon said 3. He was out there today and, taking command. Like, it felt like he was a guy that was setting the example, which I think a lot of these younger guys needed, Keon especially. And it was a little bit shaky at times. He dropped one in individual. He kind of bobbled the ball in 11 on 11, but he ended up making the play. But there were like 2 other plays in either 7 on 7 or 11 on 11 where you're seeing the value of adding a guy like DJ Moore. And it's just the beginning stages of him and Josh Allen in the lab, figuring out the chemistry piece. Like Joe Brady mentioned this today, and we've heard this multiple times over the years, that Josh Allen will throw certain passes that maybe he wouldn't in a game to a new wide receiver, just so they can get that back on tape and look at it together and figure out how they actually want to play it in a game. So maybe he wouldn't make that throw in a regular situation, but because he wants to get a look at it, he'll force it. We'll write about a drop or an errant throw or a bobbled pass. And that was really just the Bills trying things, throwing things at the wall to try to figure out the best way they want to work through a single play, or just in terms of variations of what they're seeing out there.
Yeah, think about how many times over the course of training camp that we'll talk about a bad interception. And again, it's just a matter of him trying to put a ball in a spot where that he wouldn't maybe necessarily do in a regular season game. He just wants to see if his guy can go up and get it, if he can win those 50-50 balls, if he can adjust on the fly. And that's all well and good, because this is the time to really work on that chemistry with DJ Moore and see how much, he can do and how much this relationship can work going forward. I fully anticipate the everyone eats, offense to be there in a way, but I want to see Moore get well over 100 targets this year. I'm talking 140, 150. Be the guy that's at the buffet line.
Whoa. Let's back that up a little bit. 140, 150?
I want him to be fed the ball. He's at the buffet line. Everyone else at the table waiting for their meals, but he's just up there over and over. Feed him the ball. Yes. I'm not saying that like a guy like Dalton Kincaid can't step up this year, but think about all the targets we've talked about him getting over the years where he just can't stay healthy. The knee, the issues there. This is your bona fide number one. I want this to look like it did early on in the Stephon Diggs days with the Bills, where there was no argument about who the number one target was. And I know Joe Brady comes along as he gets that interim OC job, and all of a sudden the targets change for Diggs, and maybe that led to the strain in relationship. This is his offense now. He's going to be talking it over with all the guys that he has in that offensive room, Pete Carmichael Jr., first and foremost. And you got to find ways to get your number one playmaker the ball. And I really think that is going to be one of the big shifts we see this year with this offense.
It's not a huge eye-popping number that you throw out there. I only more so say it in this offense, knowing how Joe Brady has operated. He had 140 targets in Chicago in 24. Last season, 136. Or in 2023, 136. Last season, in his final year, 85. And I think part of that is why Chicago was willing to kind of move on from him. They have a lot of young pieces in that offense, and he wasn't featured as much as he was in that first season. And you could make the argument that first season in Chicago was the best year of DJ Moore's career. 136 targets, 96 catches, 1,300 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Those kinds of numbers in this offense, I think that boosts their passing game considerably. I think that, to your point, I probably was expecting somewhere in the middle of 85 and 140, somewhere around 100 targets in that department. But if you're getting up to 120 and he's able to eat, and you have some of those efficiency numbers there that I just kind of pointed out with Moore in this Bills offense, I think you take that and you feed him.
Yeah, if you can get the ball to James Cook out of the backfield, if you can get the ball to Kincaid on a semi-regular basis, Shakir is going to get those quick screens, but he can do a lot more than that. Get those guys the balls at a fair rate, but make sure that Moore is your guy. Work on making sure teams know that that's the guy. If you're going to try to take someone away, that's got to be it. Because I feel like in years past, there have been some teams that have matched up very well against the Bills because there hasn't been that one player that commands attention and can sometimes even win when other teams are commanding that attention on him. I really do feel like this is going to be someone where we look back on the trade, because a lot of us have said, a second round pick where maybe you could get him. You thought you could get him for a mid round. You're going to look back and say the value is totally there as long as he stays healthy this year. I think this is a guy that will easily go over 1,000 yards receiving and be that number one that Josh hasn't necessarily had in a few years.
Some big news over at Wingnuts. They're opening their Florida location, Wingnuts Lakeland, Dixieland Mall Lane in Lakeland, Florida. If you are a Big Shout fan, Bills fan in the Florida area, anywhere in the state, go drive to Lakeland and get yourself some Wingnuts. We're going to be back live, Shout Live at Wingnuts a week from Friday, May 29th, 6 p.m. Bills, beers, and the best wings in Western New York. Ryan, I cannot wait.
Yeah, it's always a great time to be at Wingnuts. Weather pending, hopefully out on that patio at Millersport. Should be a great time. Plenty to talk about Bills-wise.
All right, let's shift it over to the defensive side of the ball because it was impossible. Well, let's first get to who wasn't there today that I didn't spot. Now, Joe Brady kind of mentioned it before practice. There's been guys that have been in and out, maybe that played yesterday in practice, but we're going to kind of get an off day today. So Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown, nobody spotted them throughout practice. They popped out at the end in street clothes. So they were in the building, maybe lifting weights, maybe doing rehab. Deion was in a boot recently in a picture on Instagram. So maybe he's, nursing something little, but guys are going to be in and out of the lineup, basically, Joe Brady said. So I wouldn't take too much worry if somebody's not there, but James Cook not in attendance today. I didn't see Christian Benford either. And then Ed Oliver, I think somebody said they saw him walking around, but he wasn't out at practice. So Deion Dawkins, Spencer Brown, not there. Very big opportunity for some of the backup tackles that are going to be competing for the swing job. And I want to start with Jude Bowery, the 4th-round draft pick this year, who got a very good opportunity to go against some of the top Bills pass rushers on the outside. 2 specific matchups in 11-on-11 against Bradley Chubb were welcome to the NFL moments for the rookie. Bradley Chubb looked absolutely outstanding. Explosiveness, speed around the edge, and listen, Bradley Chubb was a number 5 overall pick. I'm not trying to downplay his ability to win in multiple ways with power, with speed. But you think about him over the last couple of years, watching him in Miami, it's like that physical nature of which he plays the position. He was explosive. He had Jude Bowery, in a phone booth looking for any kind of situation to slow him down. And I think there would have been 2 would-be sacks on Josh Allen if it was a game situation. Bradley Chubb looked outstanding today. And aside from the reps on the practice field, just watching him go up and down the sideline during team drills and spending time with a bunch of the young guys, talking shop with Greg Rousseau, you're immediately kind of seeing what everybody's been talking about. Joe Brady, Brandon Beane. I talked to Marcel Louis-Jacques, who covered Chubb in Miami the last couple of years, just raved about who he is on and off the field. You're starting to see that materialize here early, even in the spring program.
Bradley Chubb's interesting because the stat line wasn't bad last year, but he did look a step slow at times. But he was also coming off of a serious injury. I think the Bills said, okay, he put up pretty respectable stats, and he wasn't at 100% most likely. They're banking on that explosiveness that you mentioned to come back this year. And obviously, it's great to hear how he looked today. Really good learning lessons for Jude Bowery. In terms of this is going to get you up to speed very quickly going against someone like that. And 2, it might also help the Bills in terms of, is this guy best positioned at tackle versus guard early in his career, not something necessarily long-term. But Chubb has everything in the arsenal. He has the power. He's shown speed and the explosiveness. He has some good bend. He's an all-around player, and this is going to benefit guys on offense like Bowery. It's going to help players like Rousseau, TJ Parker, obviously, and that list goes on. This is another veteran leadership type of player, very similar to what they did with Bosa last year, but the difference is Chubb's a lot better at setting the edge and stopping the run, where they let Bosa sometimes get upfield, and that would lead to some areas where some big run plays would be broken off because he over pursued on a play. So I like the mentality that the Bills have. Love Chubb's game. Happy to hear how explosive he sounds. Everyone is at square one in this defense because Jim Leonard, this is his first year as a DC, but it also helps to bring in players that are proven, that have produced in this league, and that's exactly what Chubb can do.
A lot of Zane Durant today, actually. I noticed him on the field. He was active. I noticed him on one kind of bad rep where I feel like it was who was running. I think it might have been Frank Gore Jr. Let's pull up my notes here. Yeah, it was Frank Gore Jr. who kind of blew through the line and split Dwayne Carter and Zane Durant. But a couple of plays where you could see the coaches kind of impressed with what they're seeing from this youngster getting in the backfield. Again, no pads. You got to put all this in its proper situation. But, this defensive line over the next couple of months, it's going to have to come together. They're going to throw a lot of different things at you. I mean, I can't get into the details, but I can say that when you get to training camp, and if you are have gone to practices during the Sean McDermott era, it is going to kind of blow you away a little bit when you see all of the different things that Jim Leonard's able to do with this collection of talent, but all of the different styles. I mean, now Landon Jackson, we were talking to him after practice today, and he said he feels even more comfortable in this scheme because of it's the same one that he played at Arkansas. On the inside, it doesn't force him to drop into coverage, which he admitted wasn't a strong part of his game.
Right.
And now he can kind of focus a little bit more on run defense and getting after the quarterback from that 4-eye spot.
Yeah, that's huge for him because sometimes when you draft a player, you might envision them playing one way, and then when a coach gets fired or there's a regime change, sometimes players don't fit. This feels like a move that really does fit his skill set better. It's the opposite almost of what happens to a lot of players. And to his credit, didn't get a lot of playing time last year, inactive early in the year, dealt with an injury that took him out late in the season. He really went off this offseason, though, bulked up. He looked significantly bigger, more muscular, and that happens a lot for players in year two. Year one, they're going through the combine, the all-star games, the pre-draft workouts, private visits, et cetera, and they don't have as much time necessarily to work on getting that NFL-type body, where in year two, they can really talk to the coaching staff, talk to the GM. What do you need for me? And really focus on that. And he looks the part. Now, obviously, looking like an NFL player is one thing. He's got to really play like one this year, too, if he wants to develop a larger role. But I really do like the way he's going to fit into this scheme. Based on what we saw from Leonard during his days at Wisconsin, what he probably picked up during his time at Denver with some great defensive minds, Vance Joseph obviously leading the way there. It's very exciting because it's the unknown, Matt. We knew what to expect from a Sean McDermott defense, the bend, don't break, regular season being enough to win double-digit games year in, year out. But come playoff time, that unit stumbled over and over and over again against elite or high upper echelon offenses. This is a chance for Jim Leonard to show what he can do. And, it's not always going to be perfect. I'm sure they're going to go through some rough patches this summer in season, but when it all comes together come playoff time, can he put together a unit that can slow down these offensive teams where the Bills have had to get into shootouts in the past?
One question in here about Dwayne Carter. I thought it was a really impressive showing from him today. In the first time we've seen him on a practice field since August of last year. I mean, this guy has been relentlessly trying to rehab that injury, and him and Landon Jackson both spent most of the offseason together last year. Told us after practice he's somewhere around 340 right now. His plan is to play at 325, but Brandon Beane wasn't joking. The dude is bulked up considerably. I mean, you walk by him and you could kind of just see the size. I think he's going to be a pretty big part of what they try to do in terms of improving their run defense. He had one play where immediate penetration in the backfield and probably would have been a tackle for a loss. Again, no pad, so you don't want to overreact to it, but I was standing behind DeMar Hamlin. And I think Hamlin, who missed a big chunk of last season as well, probably spent a lot of time in the rehab room with Dwayne Carter, went flying onto the field to kind of celebrate the moment. And just those moments in and of itself for a guy that missed an entire season with an Achilles like that to me those are the little moments that you kind of start building back to where you hope he's at when training camp starts.
Yeah, this is a make or break season for him as well. We use that term because Keon Coleman used it for himself. Today, it's a huge year for Carter entering year three, based on everything that has happened injury wise, or maybe hasn't been as effective in the first 2 years in the league as he hoped or envisioned. So now he's going out, he's bulked up, he's trying to figure out and carve out a role in that defensive line. He feels he has the versatility to play all over that D line, and if he can perform well this summer, he can definitely carve out a larger role, whether that's a backup in a rotation or maybe even surprise us, because in our minds we have an idea of who we think is going to start, but there's always a surprise or two when you get a new scheme, a new system where someone comes out of nowhere and surprises you.
Dalton Kincaid is somebody that I want to spend a minute on here, because nothing crazy in terms of big plays in the individual stuff or anything in the individual period, but hearing Joe Brady talk about him today, he was featured pretty prominently last week when the Bills put out a series of photos during their workout period. You saw him on the tug tug-of-war rope at one point. Apparently, his team never lost in all of that competition over the course of the last couple of weeks. And several times they actually used Kincaid as the anchor, which oftentimes Joe Brady said that they asked nose tackles to do that. And so I kind of joke with Brady afterwards, like, that's a pretty good endorsement for the knee, considering the kind of torque that probably put on it. And he kind of laughed and said yes. But I think Kincaid, listen, I don't want to get too far down the line. This is something he's dealt with now for the last 2 seasons. He didn't have the surgery this offseason. You hope the work that he did. I got multiple folks that I've talked to on the sideline just watching today mention how much bigger he looks. He just looks more confident. I can sometimes tell as a reporter too, when you do all these interviews with players and you ask them about something that's, plagued them, whether it's performance-based, injury-based, and how uncomfortable they are when you ask them more questions about it. Today was the first day in a long time where I felt like Dalton Kincaid talked about the injuries as if it was a thing of the past. And so that to me is a huge storyline. If we get to training camp and he's out there and he's not missing any time and he's healthy throughout the summer, that's something that could really do a lot of things for this offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Building muscle around the damaged area is very common. But it's funny because pictures can be deceiving. A year ago, or maybe about a year ago, I remember the picture, the side view of Kincaid that was floated around on X, and he had the brace on. He looked really skinny. Fans were panicking, and he essentially looked the same from the previous year when you actually saw him. He definitely looks like he's bulked up this year in terms of upper body, lower body, etc. And that's needed. He needed to bulk up. He's never going to be Jackson Hawes in terms of the blocking ability. But if he wants to be out there more, he need a little bit of muscle onto that frame where maybe he can hold up a little bit longer as a blocker. He did improve last year in that area, but he was still miles away from both of the tight ends, including obviously Dawson Knox, who really improved his game a lot early in his career to become a solid blocker. That's the next evolution for him. To stay on the field, to get more targets, he's got to be able to hold up in the run game as well. And it all starts with building up that mass, and he certainly looks like he's done that.
We got a comment here on YouTube. What about this for a great nickname for you guys as a duo? The Helmet and the Dome.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
In honor of my hairdo and, well,
my lack of a hairdo.
Your dome.
Yeah. And no, I don't hate it. I'm open for it. Maybe that'll be a t-shirt.
We appreciate you with the kind words very, very much. Couple of injury notes. I got a couple more little notes I want to get to. Michael Hoyt was working off to the side.
Yeah, that looked encouraging.
Very encouraging. I mean, he was running cones, kind of like weaving in and out of cones, kind of putting some pressure on change of direction. He's very, very far along. And I mean, we've kind of heard from him this offseason. I can't remember. I think it might have been on Eric Wood's podcast.
It was.
Where, he was talking about just how much he was going to aggressively attack rehab. It looks like he's done exactly that. And then Josh Palmer, obviously the ankle was an issue last year. He was doing what looked to be like some core work today, working off to the side. So the really big 4 wide receivers today, DJ Moore, Keon Coleman, McCole Hardman, and Khalil Shakir, those were the big 4. Oh, don't let us get out of here before I want to talk about Maxwell Hairston. That's one of my other big notes. But not having Palmer out there, it's funny, like I wasn't really thinking about him a ton because so much has been made about Skylar Bell. And there's this now – we get to the first available practice, and there he is again off to the side, not being able to participate. I honestly think that Josh Palmer, when healthy, could be a factor for this offense. I just don't know if we're ever going to get to a place where they're going to feel like they can trust him to be available for a long period of time.
He's an expensive lottery ticket. You don't know if this is going to work out or not because you're right. When healthy, he's shown the ability in his career to be someone that can stretch the field, that can make big plays, especially in the intermediate part of the field, the yards after the catch. We saw flashes of it last year against Atlanta, but we also saw the nagging injuries, the ineffective play, trying to play through the injury, which, that's commendable. but he was a non-factor on the field. And you're hoping now that maybe they're easing him into it. They're not trying to push anything at this point of the year, save him for training camp, see what he can do there. But you've invested a lot of money in him, hence why I said expensive lottery ticket. But with DJ Moore, Khalil Shakir as your top two, knowing what you have in Kincaid and James Cook, hoping that Keon Coleman really steps up his game. There's a lot of other mouths that can be fed in that offense. If he can stay healthy, though, he can be a big part of an explosive unit that can really hurt teams because there'd be so many ways to attack you on the field.
We're going to talk about Hairston in a minute, but I had this clip lined up of DJ Moore just to give everybody, if you haven't seen him on social media, a little clip of Josh Allen to DJ Moore. I'll play that now. Ryan, it was windy out there today.
Yeah, I can tell.
You should have seen the hairdo. At one point, John Scott from Channel 2 walked over to me and said, I really wish I had a mirror right now to show you what your hair looks like. And I was like, all right. But it was super windy. Balls were kind of flying all over the place. I think that might have actually played into a couple of the errant passes from Josh Allen out there today. It was a really, really windy afternoon. But I want to get to Hairston real quick because a lot of people have been talking about him this offseason. The Bills go out and draft Davison Igbinosun, and I think that immediately shines a little bit of light on, all right, is there any question marks about Maxwell Hairston? Obviously, the availability issues last year. He was super competitive today. I mentioned the fact that he was in the area in that Keon Coleman catch. There was one play one-on-one, which I thought is interesting. It was against Khalil Shakir. I can't get into the details of the route, but take that for what it's worth. One-on-one with Khalil Shakir, who usually in that area of the field, like mid-intermediate area, he's really just tough to deal with. If he gives you a double move, he's usually nothing he was doing was working against Hairston. Hairston stuck to him like glue the entire rep and then goes up at the last moment and bats the ball away and forces the PBU. And it's like those are going to be the moments. Christian Benford not out there today. A lot of Davidson, Igbinosun, and Hairston together. Making plays like that, I think those are going to be the things that fans are looking for consistently in the summer, but also that Hairston's out there to make those plays is going to be a big piece of it too.
Yeah, it's not a talent thing for me with Hairston. I mean, when he was out there last year, when he came back from an injury, he was outstanding. Interceptions in multiple games, going one-on-one with the speediest receivers in the league. Think of that KC matchup. He can really wipe out a lot of players. And I expect a leap in year two in terms of the ability, in terms of the coverage, but it's going to be durability. Can he stay healthy? And, it's a small sample size from last year, but he was banged up a little bit in college as well. It's going to be up for him to be able to show that he can stay healthy because the talent's absolutely there. He might not have the ideal size, and you might want to see him add a little bit of muscle to the lower body, especially, but talent is off the charts, and I'd feel really good about the top three that the Bills have, including Igbinosun for Buffalo. If they can all stay healthy this year, that's a great unit to have as outside players. Obviously, they added in the slot this year as well in free agency. So the cornerback room on paper is promising. It's going to come down to a lot of it, though, in terms of the health, because even with Christian Benford, who is outstanding, a true cornerback one, he's even been banged up a lot or throughout his career.
Tyrell Shavers was out there today watching, wasn't doing any work off to the side. I mean, you think about it, his injury happened in January. I still think it's going to be a while before we see him. Maybe early training camp off to the side as they slowly work. I'm thinking about Trey White a couple of years ago when they started kind of rolling him back early in training camp with just some of the tire work and stuff like that. Dorian Strong was out there today. He had the neck brace on, and I thought it was a good sign. Like 20, 30 minutes into practice, he took the neck brace off and was just kind of hanging out, catching some passes. Not really like in any type of like, just, Kai would toss him a ball. Like he was moving around a little bit and it looked at the very least, pretty cool for a guy that's dealing with a pretty serious neck situation right now, still uncertain about the future. But the fact that he's at the facility, that he's out at practice, I mean, it feels good that he's kind of staying in the mix.
Yeah, clear message that he wants to be there, that he wants to be able to come back in due time. It's all about, patience for him and from the team, obviously. This cannot be rushed back from, not that the team or the player would. There's a lot of clearances they're going to have to go through for him to even step on a football field again. But it's always encouraging seeing him at the facility. And we saw him there months ago with the neck brace on for some photos. So he's doing everything he can to work his way back. And I hope it happens. He showed a ton of promise in his limited opportunities as a rookie last year, starting week 1, everything he did over training camp and leading up to that. So definitely a player that anyone and everyone should root for.
What is up, Jake, over on YouTube? Welcome in. I know you're late to the party, as you mentioned, but you can always rewind right here on YouTube and start it back at the very beginning. All right, one last thing before we get out of here. I thought Frank Gore Jr. ran the ball really well today. It is weird seeing Ray Davis in number 7, go in number 15. Like some things that are going to take some adjustments. One more play in 7-on-7. Skylar Bell made a nice play on a short throw from Josh Allen, turned upfield. I lost track of him on the sideline because I was kind of standing behind the defensive sideline. And either D. Elford or Terrell Bernard came in and ripped the ball out of there and forced the fumble. The entire sideline on the defensive side went absolutely nuts. So not a great play for the rookie. Ball security continuing to be something that, we're going to track here. And it was also interesting to not see Dorian Williams or Joe Andreessen out there today because I was kind of looking forward to seeing him, Williams specifically, out there today with the linebackers, and he wasn't out there. So I don't know. Maybe we'll get an injury update on him at some point soon from Brady.
Yeah, good learning experience for Skylar Bell. Learn from it, protect the football, get better, try to work your way up the depth chart. But, I'm glad you mentioned the linebacker position because I said it earlier in the show, Matt. Everyone's at square one in Jim Leonard's defense. And the more reps that Elarms Orr gets for this team, the more I could see him making a push for a significant role early in his rookie year. I'm not saying he's going to be able to win week 1 starting role, but the more reps he gets, the more confidence he's going to build. And they loved his skill set. He might not have the ideal size. That's why he fell where he did in this draft, but the skill set is there. The athleticism is off the charts. And the more he gets run with this team and reps against this offense, the better he's going to be.
All right, May 29th, Friday night, a week from this Friday, 6 p.m., we'll be at Wingnuts for a live episode of Shout. We'll be eating wings, drinking beer. It's going to be a great time. I'll put the RSVP link in the show notes below on every platform. So all you got to do is click in there. It'll take you over to the Facebook event. If you're not on Facebook, maybe just put it in your calendar. But we're hoping to see a bunch of people. We haven't done a show in a couple of months, and we're super excited to get back to Wingnuts, 1402 Millersport Highway.
Yeah, join us live. Can't beat it. Great food, great beer, great times.
All right, everybody. Have a great week. We'll be back soon. Take care.